Valentine's Day. I'm sorry again, I've been missing in action. The last month has been an absolute whirlwind, to say the least. As many of you now know, we have been granted our E2 visa, and in the last vlog I promised I would give you a full rundown of how that experience went. So since then, the interview was just over a month ago, and just a very brief outline of what's happened since then before I go into the interview experience itself. After the interview, we very quickly had to sell our house. It was already going through anyway, but we had to sell our house. We had to be out by the 27th of September. So we had to complete all the paperwork for the house sale. The house sale actually went through on, I think it was like around the 22nd of September. Just after we were granted the visa, we booked flights to go over to Florida because, as you also know, some of you, we purchased a new build property on the basis that the visa was going to be granted. So that had to close by the 30th of September. So the house sale went through on the 22nd. The family who purchased the property let us stay in it until the 27th, the morning of when we was flying over on the Saturday. So they let us stay in it for a few extra days. And then we flew over to Florida and we closed on our American property on the 30th of September. So from the 8th to kind of the 27th, the 8th was the visa interview day, to the 27th, that has just been absolute chaos. So it has been, I've had no time to really vlog anything. I've vlogged a couple of things, but obviously I've not created a vlog. So that will come after this because I promised that I would deliver this vlog, which is probably one of the most important things I think as part of this journey, is getting granted the visa. So that's kind of what's happened over the last month, and like I said, I will vlog that separately going forward after this vlog, but that's where we are now. At the moment we have, as I think I said in previous vlogs, we went over to Florida for a week to close on the property. We couldn't get any, we couldn't get an extension on closing the property in Florida. We'd already asked for 2 extensions, which we had to pay extra for. They weren't like extension fees. We managed to negotiate that those extra fees would come off any balance. So that's kind of how it works. But again, like I said, I'll vlog that separately. But they wouldn't extend beyond the 30th of September. So it was such a rush to get that done. And we still had work commitments in the UK. So we've had to come back to the UK for a few weeks. Obviously the house is sold. So we're now staying at my parents' house for a few weeks, which again, I think I touched upon in the last vlog when we was preparing for the interview. So that's where we are. Getting into the actual interview experience itself. Again, if you've never watched any of our vlogs, we have done the E2 visa, which is an investment visa. So there's myself, my husband Chris, and our kids Alex and Isabella. So we travelled down on the train on the 6th of September and we stayed at a Premier Inn. It was nothing special. In fact, it wasn't the greatest, but it was close to the embassy, and that was all that mattered to me. It was clean. It was, it was okay for 2 days, but when we turned up, Chris was like, "What the hell have you booked here?" And anyway, the air was a bit blue, but never mind. We got through it. It was fine. It was just a little bit out of the way than, in terms of like sightseeing and stuff like that. The tube was down that weekend, even though I'm not really a lover of the tube anyway. It gives me the creeps a bit, but that's just me. And so we had to get Ubers everywhere, which was fine. But yeah, that was the whole experience. Anyway, we had a lovely weekend apart from the hotel being a bit out there, and there wasn't really anything sort of on your doorstep other than a Costa Coffee across the road. We then had to get like a taxi into Clapham to go and get food and stuff like that. That's basically where it was. It was like on the border of Clapham and Lambeth, but it was close to the embassy, and that, again, that's all that mattered because we had such an early appointment. Again, our appointment was at 7:30 in the morning, which again is something that I've had a lot of questions about. So yeah, our appointment was at 7:30, but the embassy doesn't open till at 8:30, which is, which we realised when we was looking for the address, location, things like that. And I asked our lawyer, well, our appointment's at 7:30, but the embassy doesn't open at till 8:30. And he was like, just get there half an hour before because there'll be some sort of process. It was like, right, fine. Anyway, we got there. They say get there 30 minutes before. We actually got there at 7:15 in the morning. And there was already between 20 and 30 people in the queue. And we was just like, holy Christ. So we're in the queue. And I'd say within 5 to 10 minutes, you couldn't see the queue behind you. It was that busy. So if anybody has got an interview booked or, is early on in the process, be aware that you need to get there early. But another thing that I wanted to touch upon as well is there's a fine line with that. Don't get there too early because you'll be turned away. So there was people in the queue at that time and they had 8:30 a.m. appointments and they got turned away. They said come back. They told them to come back, at your allotted time. So if you're going to get there too early, there's no point because you're just going to get turned away. So that's another thing that you need to be aware of. So we get there at 7:15. We're in the queue, and it's getting busy. But everyone's kind of thinking, well, what's going to happen next? Because obviously it's not open. So I think it was about 7:15. Members of staff start opening up. So basically you've got the embassy building, and then in front of the embassy building, there's like a separate small building, which is, security. It's like passport control at the airport. It's very similar to that, similar kind of scenario. But before you go through that building, the members of staff brought out it was like a mobile desk. Now there's 2 desks attached to the actual building where you go through sort of the, metal detector security. But then this mobile desk, it was like an overflow. So you had to present your DS-160 barcode or whatever barcode they give you depending on your visa, because there was people there for all different visas. So you need your DS-160 and you need your passport. So we went straight to this mobile desk in the queue, and they had everybody, but Alex was not on there for some reason, or they said something changed with his application or any of the details, and we were like, no. So that was like, we were thinking, oh God, what's going on? So he said, join the other queue to go through all the metal detectors, and when you come past me, check in with me again and I'll see what the issue is. Anyway, by the time we'd got back to him in the next queue, he said it's all sorted, you're fine to go through. So that was the first sort of, bit of nerves. So once we got through there, you then go through security, go through the main building, and you will come to another set of desks. You have to give your DS-160s in again with your passports, and they then generate you with a ticket that they stick to the back of your passport. So that's your unique sort of number for your party. I think ours was E951 or something like that. They tell you to go up to the second floor and go up to booth P7, and you'll have to do your fingerprints and give your passports in. So we went and did that. We waited for our number to flash up on the like a TV screen in a massive waiting room. Our lawyer said to us that it was like a post office, which it is kind of set up like that, but it's a lot nicer than a post office. But it's that kind of scenario. It's not private, and it's just a long row of booths. But the E7 booths, I think there's just like 2 of them. So you had P7 on one side, which is where you go and give your fingerprints and your passport when your name's called out. And then you go and sit back down, and then your name is called, or your number is called again for the actual interview. So we were probably one of the first 2 or 3 people there waiting. It was so nerve-wracking. And myself and Chris were up at probably 5:30 in the morning, pacing the hotel room, rattling off business figures, practicing what they were, reciting them, making sure we both knew them off by heart. I think there was something like 15 different figures that we needed to know, that our lawyer had told us to, make sure that we know, you're not expected to know every single one, but you want to try and remember as much as you can. So we were like pacing the hotel room at stupid o'clock in the morning, trying to remember all that, as well as just generally being nervous. And at the same time as waiting for the interview, there was another applicant there, and he was talking to somebody else, and obviously you overhear people's conversations. And he said to him, have you done this before? And this guy said, yeah, I got refused. I got denied 11 months ago. So me and Chris are like looking at each other thinking, holy crap, what's going to happen here, kind of thing. Obviously the worst, you think the worst at the time. Anyway, so we got called up for interview, and so many people have asked me, what questions did they ask? Now, this is a bit bizarre, and we still look back on it now and say how bizarre it is. These are the questions we got asked. They were primarily targeted to Chris because he's the main applicant. So the first question was, what is the name of your business? Which is C&R Property. No, that's not the name. C&R Construction and Remodelling. That was the name of our UK business. So our American business is C&R Construction and Remodelling LLC. So the next question after that was, what is Chris's role in the business, which is CEO? The next question after that was, they wanted to know about Chris's experience within the industry. So from leaving school, Chris has went to college to be a carpenter. He has a full MBQ in that, and he has owned his own business pretty much ever since. So and he's now 40, nearly 40. Is he 43? I think he's 43. Anyway, so it's a long time. So he explained all that and said, we've had our own business for a long time, and that was it. Now, one thing our lawyer said to us is, don't babble. Answer the questions with as much information as possible, but don't babble. Just answer the question, and then they'll probably type stuff on the computer. So do that with each question, but don't sort of keep flinging information at them, which we did. The next question was, why have you chose where you have to locate the business and to live? So we answered that because it was, an up and coming area in terms of infrastructure and remodeling and things like that. So that was the answer we gave. And then the last question was for me, and it was what my role would be within the business, because I was already down on all the paperwork. I was working for the business anyway. So they asked me to confirm what my role within the business was, which is operations manager. And then he does his typing again. And he was a really nice guy, to be fair. Not overly nice, but, he wasn't a grump or anything like that. So he's typing away again. And then he says, right, okay, you're all approved. You'll get your passports back in 5 days, and just threw them on the floor in the pile. And we were just like, okay, thanks very much. And we walked out the room, and it was just like, has that really just happened? We was absolutely like flabbergasted. He didn't ask us, he didn't grill us. He didn't ask us any in-depth questions. We got no questions whatsoever regarding figures. It was a bit surreal, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen with everybody, because the person that was in front of us that got interviewed first, they were sort of really having to justify themselves. I think they got granted, but they were sort of really having to explain themselves a lot in terms of, you know, sort of getting it over the line. So the rest of the day sort of is a little bit of a blur, to be honest. I mean, I can't even remember most of the morning after that. It is a bit of a blur. We got out of the embassy at 12 minutes past 9, and I remember that because I phoned our lawyer straight away, and I was just like, we got in. And he was like, oh, I knew you would, you know, you had a really strong application, but obviously nothing is set in stone. So yeah, then we all had to just go for a coffee because we'd had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, but nobody was in the right frame of mind to do anything like that early in the morning anyway. So we kind of went for a coffee and stuff, and then we went back to the hotel, picked up all our belongings, and then we headed to the train station and came home on the train. And I'd put a post on the Facebook group, which is where I found our lawyer, and I thanked him and stuff like that, and then my phone just started beeping like all the way home on the train. And so these are some of the questions that I got asked, you know, about timings for the interview, what questions were asked, which obviously I've just covered. Now, couple of things that our lawyer said to us is about having to take your kids to an E2 visa interview. Now, Alex and Izzy are both over 14 anyway, so they were always coming with us. So the rule used to be that if your kids are over 14, they have to attend the interview. If they're under 14, then obviously they don't have to come. That rule has now apparently changed. So if anybody is going through this process, you need to check with your lawyer about the most current rules, because they are changing all the time. So kids are now mandatory at the interview regardless of their age. Another change that he informed us that has come about is that when you were applying for an E2, you used to be able to pick which embassy you could go to. So I think one of them that was popular was Toronto, and it was popular because it had such a short wait time for the interview. You're now not allowed to do that apparently, and you have to go to the embassy of where you origin. So obviously ours would be London, in the UK. So that is another thing that you need to bear in mind if you're going to do this process and you're thinking, oh, I'll take a shortcut and I won't have to wait as long and go to a different embassy. Apparently you now can't do that. Again, the rules could change over time, so you just always need to be conscious of what the most up-to-date rules are. So that kind of is the whole visa experience. We're still in shock sometimes. I think we can't actually believe how smooth the interview went. Obviously you read and hear a lot of scare stories, and very fortunately for us, ours wasn't a scary experience at all. But I wanted to obviously vlog this because so many people have asked what it was like. And obviously just a few different scenarios with timings and things like that. The queues at the embassy were absolutely ridiculous. So that is probably one of the things I would say bear in mind. But we had a lovely weekend, and obviously that really topped it off. But I was kind of thinking through my head, you know, if we don't get this visa, this is going to be a really absolute dire end to the weekend. But fortunately for us, that wasn't the case. And I think Chris was more nervous of the fact that if we don't get this visa, because most of the work has been done by me, I've just basically wasted 2 years of my life. So fortunately, you know, that wasn't the case, and you know, we had a really nice weekend, and that just kind of topped it off perfectly. So I'm going to end the vlog for now, because there's a lot more stuff to vlog that's happened over the last month. So there will probably be quite a few videos that I'm going to be uploading over the next week or so, which covers packing stuff up for moving house. Packing stuff up for moving, obviously the flight over and purchasing the new house, which was, well, it was another story, but it was a stress. But I'll cover that in the next vlog. So I will say bye for now. Just wanted to say as well, thanks to everyone for watching so far, and thanks for all the interest, because there has been a lot of interest and there's been a lot of questions. Again, via Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I've got people WhatsApping me. So if anybody does need any help, then I'm happy to reply and answer your questions. I am not a lawyer, so please don't look at me for advice. Even though Chris said I should start charging. I am not a lawyer in any way, shape or form. I'm only telling you our personal experience, so please do not ask me for advice. Speak to a lawyer. I have had a lot of people ask me for our lawyer's details. His name is Sid and his company is Visas for America, and I will put his details down below, and I will also put them in the description. He is a lovely guy. He is so helpful. He has never turned me away in terms of asking for advice, help, whatsoever. So yeah, I can't recommend him highly enough, to be honest. He was an absolute godsend, and he was worth every single penny that we paid in terms of advice, the way he prepared us for the interviews, even though we kind of didn't really touch upon much that he prepared us for in the interviews. Our questions were fortunately really basic, but I would rather have had that preparation than not. And he did 3 mock interviews with us where he, really grilled the hell out of us, and it really prepared us for sort of a worst case scenario, which fortunately for us wasn't the case. So yeah, like I said, if anybody does want to reach out to him, then the details are down below. And you'll be in really good hands with him. So yeah. So thank you everybody for watching so far. Again, my numbers are going up nice and steadily. So really appreciate everyone for watching. If you don't already subscribe, please click on the thumbs up buttons and subscribe. And if anyone's got any comments, please leave them down below and I'll get back to you all as soon as I can. And I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.